Hello, and welcome to the Beyond B2B Marketing podcast. I'm your host, Lee Odden, CEO of TopRank Marketing, and today we have a familiar and marketing famous voice joining us, a legend in the B2B content and marketing world. Not only is she both a super fan of E.B. White and Taylor Swift, she's an original LinkedIn top voice influencer with nearly 500,000 followers on LinkedIn. Of course, I'm talking about best-selling author, keynote speaker, and chief content officer at MarketingProfs, and my good friend, Ann Handley. Welcome, Ann.
Thank you so much for having me, Lee. It's such a delight to be with you today.
It's great to see you.
Yeah.
So my first question is, do you think it's possible for us to have a conversation on a marketing podcast and we don't really talk about AI?
Ooh. What does AI stand for?
I think we just did. Authentic intelligence, that's what it
Oh my
is.
gosh. So this well, to answer your question directly, no, I think it's impossible to speak about anything related to marketing without mentioning AI. But it's funny because I literally just posted on LinkedIn this morning about a different kind of AI that I call analog intelligence, which is using like tools and actually thinking about how do we maintain our own brain essentially? How do we make our own thinking sharp or keep our thinking sharp in an age where, artificial is just like sliding into the room and being like, "Hey, you need some help with that?" Like a souped up Clippy, right? And so,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
yeah, I don't think we can have a marketing podcast and not talk about AI, but that's okay. That's sort of where we're at.
I think you're touching on something that's really fundamental, and that is, I mean, we saw the study. That was at MIT or whoever that came out that said, there's a sort of they didn't use this expression, but sort of a brain rot with people that are overusing AI for things. And funny thing about it is, though, that I've always thought of this, and that is AI makes you more of what you are. In sort of other words, the fun analogy I use. I actually did a presentation a couple years ago at a marketing conference, and I was talking about how, money makes you more of what you are, right? If you're a broke asshole and you get a bunch of money, you're just a rich asshole, right? And AI is similar in that, if you put crap into it, you're going to get crap out. So there's
Yes.
an interesting mediocrity at scale happening with a certain segment of folks. And then the more creative, imaginative folks who are more thoughtful and certainly investing in context, they're getting the outputs.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's true, and I love that analogy about, it makes you more of what you are. I think that's 100% true. But to me, I think, the messaging, if you listen to AI companies, they're like, "Oh, you can write faster and you can be more efficient with it." And it's like, yeah, but I think it's incumbent on all of us to be very thoughtful in how we think about implementing or inviting AI into our own process. And so to me, it's a matter of not just whether you should use AI, but when. So specifically what I mean by that is like, don't invite AI into the process too soon, because I think that's when you're going to get the sort of flattening of content, flattening of writing, mediocrity of thought. Instead, think about what you want to say. Jot down a few notes. Again, analog style is how I do it. Literally write it down. And part of the reason why I do that is because it preserves or it helps me resist the temptation to fire up AI too soon. So I write a list of sort of what I wanna talk about or what I'm thinking about. I do a rough draft, that sort of ugly first draft that I talked about in my last book, and then I invite AI into the process, like, "What did I miss? How could I make this stronger? Is this clear?" Like, that to me is a really great use of AI instead of firing it up instantly and saying, "Write me a blog post about pencils," right? Instead, you're articulating what you want, your point of view, and you're keeping that muscle strong for yourself.
Yeah, yeah, I love the co-pilot analogy that Microsoft uses. It's that sort of partner, not a replacement.
Yeah.
Um, so, the one thing before we get into some of the marketing deeper topics, I do want to thank you for not only all that you do for our community and being a great friend for so many years, but you helped me pick the name of this podcast. I don't know if
Yes.
you know that, but I fired a couple of names at you, and you're like, "Yeah, that one looks good." I'm like, "Yeah, I agree. This does look good." So, thank you for that. Beyond B2B. Um, so let's talk about your new book. What can you say
Mm.
about it?
Oh my gosh. Um, yeah, so I'm very excited about this book for a few reasons. The first reason is because of the subject itself. Um, the book is called ASAP, as slow as possible, and it's about reclaiming our humanity and our agency in an era of hyper efficiency. Um, So I'm excited about it because it's a new topic for me in a way, but in a way it's not because I've been thinking about this ideally since 2016. I presented on stage about it at Content Marketing World 2016 on the main stage for the very first time. And then over the next 10 years, it'll be 10 years by the time the book comes out because it'll come out in 2026. It's with Penguin Random House, Valentine. And so by the time the book comes out, it will be 10 years. And my thinking has evolved, the ideas have evolved, and the idea has gotten bigger and stronger. And so it's a big swing for me. It's not just about marketing, but it's not about marketing either, it's bigger than that, it's about how we show up creatively, it's how we innovate, it's how we connect with other people in our lives, whether we're a marketer working for a brand or whether we're, a person or a doctor or any of those things, a student. And so it's a big swing for me because it's outside of my comfort zone, it's outside of my comforting bubble of marketing, and, but I'm really excited and challenged by it, and I feel ready for it.
Well, I think it's fantastic for a couple of reasons. One, obviously, any book from you is going to be amazing. You're such a great writer, a great communicator, great storyteller. The fact that you're pushing outside the boundaries of the box of marketing is also fantastic because you're going to be able to help a lot of folks that are outside of your normal community, which is a pretty large group of people anyway. So I'm excited for you and for the folks who are going to get a chance to read it. So yeah, keep us posted.
Yeah, I will. I told you before we started recording that I don't even have a landing page up. Like, this is how new this is, and this is how early I am in the process of talking about it. But, if it was sort of funny because I got a call out of the blue about 2 weeks ago from The Economist. And what they had seen my post on analog intelligence that I had put on LinkedIn at some point a couple of weeks ago, some of my early thinking about it. And so they reached out to me to ask, can we interview you about this? Can we talk about it? And I was like, I haven't really talked about this with anybody. Like analog intelligence is part of the of ASAP of my new book. And so it was kind of funny. Like I expected to start with a bunch of sort of no name podcasts, sort of ramp up to this, like, comfortable area of, like, being able to talk about something eloquently, and, I was like, boom, like, dropped into the deep end. "Here we go, The Economist, let's go." And I was like, "Yeah, alright, I got this."
As you
I was
should.
I was sweating so much, like, I was cool as a cuke up here, but, like, underneath, like, the zoom down the bottom, like, I was sweating so profusely. But, I did it anyway.
You made it. You did it. Yay. Ah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
awesome. Well, here's a fun question for you,
yeah.
and it's about your fandom. As a diehard Swiftie, and marketing leader, B2B marketing leader, and I think you've touched on this, maybe you grazed on this in your newsletter before, but I'm just curious, as you look a lot of folks are looking for inspiration, right? And the proliferation of information about all things marketing kind of is creates a paradox of choice. Anyway, so I think about this idea that you're a fan of Taylor Swift and your ability to tell stories, and I think about, well, are there any lessons we can learn as B2B marketers
Ooh.
from a very successful person like Taylor Swift?
Yeah, I mean, oh my gosh. Should we just make this a Taylor Swift podcast? Because I feel like
Uh-oh. Okay.
we could talk B2B and Taylor Swift for hours, or I could anyway, and Lee would be, like, nodding off probably.
I'm getting an education.
Are you a Swiftie?
I'm no, I'm not, but I'm a pre-Swiftie. I enjoy the
Oh,
music
yeah.
when I hear it.
Yeah, so well, first of all, I think to answer your question, I think there's lots of things that I admire about Taylor Swift as a marketer and definitely some inspiration that we can take as B2B marketers from her approach. But the biggest one for me, I think, is her vulnerability. And that's something that I think we need more of in B2B marketing because, for lots of reasons, but, especially because, in the age of artificial where machines are writing for us and when, my co-written email that I co-wrote with Copilot or one of them is like getting into your inbox and then you're having an AI summarize it and sending it back to me. It's like all of this stuff, like in the era of hyper efficiency. Um, I think vulnerability can be a game changer for so many B2B marketers because we show up as our authentic selves. And do you know what sells is authenticity? And this is no news. Like we've been hearing about this for a really long time, but I think vulnerability is one path into that. So Taylor is incredibly vulnerable. Like when she creates her music, when she writes, she's a beautiful writer, which is a whole other lesson in B2B marketing. Her use of metaphor and imagery is just so beautiful and like so connective for me. Um, but I think all of that really does ladder up to the way she's showing up in a very vulnerable position, and the way that that manifests is that she, when through her words, through her writing, through her music, like it feels like she's talking just to you. Now, I'm one of I don't know, like probably millions of Swifties across the planet, like globally, like she has a global fan base. And so I was sitting in an arena in London. I was sitting in Wembley listening to Taylor. I went to her concert in August of last year at Wembley Stadium with a group of friends. And we're sitting there and I'm thinking she's like speaking to me, like to my soul, which
Wow.
is like that is so powerful. I've talked about, writing to one person and through a marketing context forever. But I think if you look at all like the great communicators out there, all the great entertainers, all the great musicians, they do have this capacity to identify something uniquely human in each one of us and to pull that out of our themselves to connect it to all of us, like to others around them, including, like what was there, like 90,000 people in this arena in Wembley Stadium. And so, yeah, I think that's the piece of it for me that is, like, the biggest bit of inspiration as a B2B marketer.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think there's so much to be said about that one-to-one connection because I think there's a lot of hunger in I mean, people are feeling overwhelmed and it's a shit show in the world and there's just so much going on and the ability to connect in that way is really a differentiator. It's a real standout and it goes from what it seems to be a scale of mechanical to more meaningful, you know? And I think there's a strong desire. I mean, you're really hitting on, I think, I feel like something that like we feel as individuals, right? That, and we're in the business of consuming and creating information, but certainly a lot of marketers, business people feel the same way. And I think, as you say, the idea of authenticity isn't new, but how do we do it? And so I love the fact that you're sharing this example, like vulnerability is one way, you know?
Yeah.
And I think so I love that. Thank you
Yeah,
for sharing that.
yeah. No, I think previously we've always talked about it through a customer-centric lens, like, being empathetic to the needs and wants of our customers, and while all that is true, I also think that now we've entered sort of a new era where, we need to show up differently too, and I think the vulnerability is the missing piece of that. It's no longer just enough to, communicate with your customers in an empathetic way, we also need to show up as ourselves, like uniquely human. And so I think that's where when you tap into your own vulnerability and you're willing to share that. Now, the pushback I get from a lot of marketers, Lee, is sometimes, well, yeah, but I mean, at what point does it become truly cringy and oversharing? And the key is when it stops being useful for the people you communicate with, right? And so even if you're telling a personal story, and I do this all the time in my newsletter, if you're telling a personal story, you need to tell it in a way that offers enough detail, but not too much detail so that it makes it only about you. You need to throw in enough detail and fold in enough detail to make it resonate with the readers that they recognize themselves in whatever story you're sharing. You need to make it personal enough to be unique to you, but also universal enough that it's going to appeal to those around you. And so there is a fine balance to that. But I'm challenged by that all the time. And I think it's absolutely when you hit it right, it feels on point.
Yeah. You know, I'm thinking about another challenge that exists in B2B marketing, and that is the reputation of being boring. Uh, and you're such a great curator of marketing that tells stories in a way that is meaningful, that is compelling and useful. And I'm just kind of curious, are there any B2B or even B2C brands that are crushing it in the storytelling and creativity game right now?
Yeah. One of my favorite organizations to talk about, and you may have heard me talk about these folks on stage before, is the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District.
Okay.
Have you ever heard me talk about
I
the,
think I have.
the sewer district? Oh my gosh. It's just the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District is their marketing is I can't even describe it. It's so great, first of all. Their social game is so strong. Their TikTok, their Threads, their Blue Sky, like, they're on all of the platforms. They do such a great job of humanizing the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. But more than that, the story that they're telling and the story that they constantly will pull threads from is that they are celebrating the unseen systems that make our lives easy. And so you don't think about sewers, but when you do think about sewers is when something goes wrong, right? It's like that's when you really think about sewers. But for the most part, like, they make our lives civilized and easy, and they make our lives just, you don't think about them because you don't have to. And so what the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District is doing is shining a light on that and saying, like, hey, like, this work matters and here's why. And so for them, a lot of it is a sort of a B2C component, I guess, in the sense that they are telling the story for their customers in Northeast Ohio. Now, I live in Boston. I should have mentioned that. You know that, Lee, but maybe some of your listeners don't. Like, why am I even following? That's because they do such a great job. So yeah, some of them, what they do is they're telling their story for their local audience, for the people who are, their customers. And let's not forget, though, that it's not like you have a choice of a sewer company, right? And so
Right.
it is what it is. You don't get to, it's not like a Fios Comcast situation. It's like there is only one.
What's
So
their rating?
yeah, exactly. Like, that's it. There's no consumer reports. What's the best sewer company out there? I'm not looking at Angie's List to find the best sewer company. And so, they do a really nice job of highlighting the importance of their service and what they do, but also, like, they're letting you know, like, all the things that they do, which is quite a bit. But then beyond that too, they're also speaking to an audience, again, with this bigger story of celebrating the unseen systems that make our lives just easier on a daily basis. So there is a B2C component. There's also a recruiting component, because part of what they do is they highlight the people who are responsible for all of that great work that they do, which really assists with their recruiting efforts. And it's also sort of a B2G, because part of what they're doing there from a government perspective is making sure that, they're able to do the work they do. They have the funding, the resources, and all that kind of stuff. So it sort of lives in a couple of different verticals, but I love the work so much. I love what they do. And I love, by the way, that it's one guy, a guy named John Gonzalez, who is the leader of the whole thing. He's the director of, sorry, no, he's the manager of communications there. Not even the director, not like a CMO level guy.
He's a
He's
should-be director.
oh my gosh, genius. But yeah, he's done a fantastic job with the social game, but they also have a newsletter. Their website content is great. They do clean water festivals, like a lot of sewer companies will do around. But they live on they perform on an outsized stage, in a way that I find really, really innovative, but also very inspiring as a B2B marketer.
That's great. Well, I'll definitely include links in the notes,
Oh yeah.
so
Um,
others can enjoy
Can I share one more?
something that.
Because I have one more company that I
Yeah, please.
okay. All right. So here's my Sprout Social story. So this is an influencer story. A few
Mhm.
weeks ago, a few months ago at this point, Sprout Social reached out to me and said they had this new content marketing study. They asked for my help through an influencer capacity in terms of amplifying its reach. And so I was like, yes, I would love to do that. I did it on LinkedIn, and I also did it through my own email newsletter. And it was really great information in the report itself, this content marketing study that they'd put out. But one of the key takeaways from that was that posting less is a power move. And that's something that I wrote. It wasn't in the report, but I wrote it. And the data showed that when you post less and with more intention and with more of a story focus and more of a customer focus and all of that kind of stuff, ultimately it performs better, right? So posting less is a power move, I wrote. And then I said, gosh, like I really want that as a tattoo. And I was like, oh, I really want that as a t-shirt, one of those things. So fast forward a few weeks, I go to pick up my mail. And it was a joke, by the way. I was just totally kidding. It was just a way to talk about it in a way that was fun, right? It was very, very Ann. So fast forward a few weeks, I go to pick up my mail, and what do you think is in my mailbox? But not only a T-shirt that says "Posting less is a power move," like it's a custom T-shirt that they did just for me, with like the Sprout Social like link on the back, and I've also got some tattoos that
Temporary tattoo. Oh my gosh, that's fantastic.
so great. And the reason why I like this so much is because, they did a few things really, really well. First of all, they said like, "Hey, can you help us amplify this?" I was like, "Sure." Now, I've done a lot of these kind of influencer programs, and usually at that point, it's like done, good, we're all finished. But they took it a step forward or a step further and amplified it even more by saying, like, by actually giving me the T-shirt, and they didn't ask me, by the way, to like, "Can you share this too? Can you share that we did this?" But like, guess what I'm gonna post like
Of
everywhere,
course.
you know? Because it's such a smart move by them. It's so agile. Like they just said, let's get her a T-shirt. She wants a T-shirt. Let's get her a T-shirt. She wants tattoos. Let's get her a tattoo. I don't know. It was just paying attention and being very agile and being willing to just do something a little bit out of the box. I'm sure this wasn't in their playbook, like send follow-up t-shirt. Like it wasn't part of it. But someone there was just like, you know what, the team there is fantastic. And they were just like, you know what, let's just make it happen. Let's just do it. And so as a result, they've got me like more engaged with their content again because I was like, wow, that's really smart. And as a result, it's going to go out to my audience again. So yeah, it's just a great example, I think, of paying attention.
It is a great example of paying attention and not avoiding the short-term thinking and transactional thinking that is so common with influencer activations these days, and a more meaningful relationship uh, effort and focus. And I think as someone who's done a couple of influencer activations myself, and obviously we run influencer programs for a lot of different companies, not saying thank you afterwards in various interesting ways. I mean, just an email is good, a text or something, or any kind of follow-up after the fact is really probably one of the biggest mistakes brands make, is that because the campaign has concluded, they just, as you say, move on and don't think about, wait a minute, you just created an experience with someone who's highly influential, one of the most influential voices in your market. Why would you just shut the door on that, So I love the
Yeah,
example. Love it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think, we've talked about this together, I think, a few times, but the idea of a transactional relationship in influencer marketing is just it's so disappointing to me. But on the other hand, like, I get it because we are in this era of hyper efficiency. Like, the teams aren't like, "Oh, we don't care about her anymore." It's more likely that it's like, "Oh, they've moved on." But, and again, this relates back to the topic of my new book is which I don't have a landing page for, which I have no other way to talk about. Which is that, like finding those moments where you can sort of slow down and say, "You know what? Yeah, we should actually offers something else, like, not because we're looking for something, but because it builds a relationship with someone we wanna have a relationship with long term, and because this is important for our brand and because it's important for us. Um, and, like, I don't know, I just, like, I could feel the delight of the team in this, I could just feel the joy because you can tell that they're like, "She is gonna be so surprised when we send her this," because I was just kinda riffing in my typical, like, sort of Anna way, like, "Oh, I'm gonna get a tattoo. Oh, I'm gonna get a t-shirt," and, like, the fact that they actually did it is, like, you could like I said, you could feel the joy, and I love the fact that it just sorta signals, like, so much great stuff in marketing, So, yeah, it was well done.
Well done. Um, Another place where you mentioned LinkedIn, but you spend a bit of time on Instagram. I
Mm.
think we're both pretty big fans of Instagram. And I don't know if you heard this, but starting this week, some folks got a notification saying that Instagram is going to allow Google and other search engines to index a lot more of their content. And I'm just wondering, what kind of impact do you think that's going to have on the user experience? And obviously, there's opportunities for marketers too.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like, first of all, it makes total sense because, it's a defensible position, right? It's like they needed to do something so that they're not totally shut out of this generative AI search game, right? And so to me, it makes total sense, because AI, unlike traditional search, I guess, and I'm not a search person, so and I know this is your background, Lee, so you can feel free to correct me on this. But when I think about it, I think that like traditional search is much more about links, like how do you actually get people to pay attention to you, to link to you, and part of it is linking to them and all that kind of stuff, and getting as much inbound love as you can. Where the generative AI search game is really about mentions, right? How do you actually show up in conversations, and are you showing up in conversations? And so it makes total sense that Instagram would be like, "Whoa, like we're completely walled off from everything right now, so we need to be more like TikTok. We need to be, to me, more like YouTube. We need to show up in those search results." And so, yeah, it makes total sense. But it's interesting from a user experience perspective, like, I don't know, I haven't really thought much about it. Um, I mean, I think if brands do it right, it's not gonna feel any different to the users. I mean, if anything, it will make their content stronger if they do it right, again, because it brings the search teams, the SEO teams, as well as the social teams together, and so that will ultimately only make things better and stronger. I mean, the risk is always that they're going that teams will do it badly and it'll just be a terrible user experience, but that's not gonna serve them long term, and so I really hope that they implement it in a really smart way and talk about things like, yeah, you can throw in your subject matter expertise and your preferred keywords, like what you wanna be known for. But I think doing it in a way that's inherently useful is going to be the way to go just in like, for any content, but, especially on Instagram.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're making a good point, and your differentiation is good. My, sometimes when an optimization opportunity reveals itself, there's it creates a certain gravity towards activity amongst the SEO community. So on the one hand, I do wonder about a scaling up of AI generated images and reels and whatnot posted on Instagram. For the purpose of influencing search in some way, but I'm not sure that will be as much of an issue. I do think though about, AI has pretty much become ubiquitous in all search forms, right? So there is no real, there's very little, maybe DuckDuckGo or something, but there's very little like traditional search anymore. It's AI influenced everywhere. And with AI, like with Google, and there's a thing called query fanouts, which basically when you do a search for something, it is then instantly conducting a whole swath of searches on derivative topics simultaneously. And it's looking for evidence of what we'll call the best answer amongst all those different properties and then deliver the results that way. So Instagram would potentially serve as a very strong signal in that situation. You can't, if you want to rank, as it were, you can't just rank on your web pages, right? And it's not about links, like you say, right? But it is about the ubiquitousness of your mention in context across all the different places that matter. That totality is then what earns you that best answer position or first page position or whatever in the overview or in the ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever. So yeah, it's interesting times as maybe there's another platform we both like will open up its doors a little bit to that. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I think the other interesting thing about it is that it gives your posts a longer shelf life. Like one of the problems with Instagram right now is that the feed is a little bit chaotic. It's kind of a mess, and so much of what creators and brands are posting is just either completely under the radar or it gets lost because it's like gone. It like one scroll and you're done. But I think what this does, obviously, is it helps it live for much longer if it ultimately is surfaced in search results. And so, yeah, I think the longer shelf life, and so what does that mean for marketers or for creators or anybody who's posting? In my mind, it means that, you need to pay a little bit closer attention to what you're doing there and actually make it worthwhile and meaningful for you and your brand. Which, by the way, kind of not how I use Instagram at all. Like I am very silly on there. Like I'm just kind of stupid. Like I just kind of do whatever I want, Yeah. It's like I'm just like posting about how I just started working out at a gym again and I started like now protein shakes are my entire personality. Like that's the kind of thing I post there. It has no relevance to the rest of my life. It's just sort of my goof around place. And I'm like, well, maybe I need to rethink that if it's actually going to start being surfaced in search.
Yeah, that's funny. Same here. I'm the same way. And I recently joined an Adobe influencer program. Or
Mm,
no, let me rephrase that. Adobe brought me into the Adobe Summit with some other influencers, and it
yeah.
was a totally different group, very Instagram savvy people. And I was looking; they were using Instagram in the way that they were building their businesses as creators or using Instagram. I mean, here I was looking at my Instagram, and I'm like, oh no, it's not that at all. That wasn't I was brought on to post to LinkedIn, not to post to Instagram, but
Yeah.
it was interesting, and it made me think the same thing you just said
Yeah.
about whether I should start to modify my Instagram strategy, and I probably will.
Yeah. I don't know.
Um,
It's like what's love though? Can I just have a place to show up as my stupid self? It's like
yeah, exactly, yeah. Well, on the other end of the spectrum, if that's accurate, I don't know. LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn is, it's the if you're in business, you're doing business on LinkedIn. And I'm just kind of wondering what your take is on LinkedIn these days. Cause I've noticed for you, and I kind of looked at your last couple of posts there, 9,000 likes and 3,000 comments between the last three posts. Holy smokes. Um, so you don't post that often, but when you do, bam, right? It's like you're walking the talk of of the whole slow down perspective.
yeah, it's funny because I had another magazine had reached out to me and asked me about my LinkedIn strategy and balancing my approach. They had talked to a bunch of other LinkedIn, I don't know, experts or I don't know, people using LinkedIn to grow their expertise and grow their platforms. And their strategy was completely opposite of mine. Their strategy was like post often, post every day, at least 3 times a week. Lots of hashtag, lots of engagement, tag other influencers, tag other people with big audiences, comment on other people's stuff. And I don't know, that's just not the way that I think about LinkedIn. And like the truth is, Lee, that I show up on LinkedIn just like I show up everywhere else. I publish a newsletter every 2 weeks because that's all I can manage. I don't post anywhere daily anymore. I'm not on Facebook at all because it was too much for me. So I am very intentional about when I show up and then how I show up. And so on LinkedIn, it's that very same approach. I post when I have something to say, not because it's a Tuesday at 10 a.m. And I post when I feel like it's something useful and valuable for others. I always, not always, but I often will tell a little bit of a story about what I'm doing, which storytelling helps. I try to make it sound like it could only come from me, even if you didn't, even if you scrolled right past my name when you were scrolling on LinkedIn. I want it to suddenly feel like this could only be from Ann Handley. And, so that's literally my strategy is to talk about what I'm doing in the context of why it matters to others, why it matters to followers, and then to only post when I have something to say. I don't listen to any of the experts or any of the LinkedIn consultants who give me advice about how to grow your LinkedIn audience. I just don't think it's valuable for me. I can't say that it would be the same if I didn't already have a pretty sizable following there. Like you said, I have almost 500,000 people who are following me. But so I can't say that that's going to apply to somebody who only has a couple of hundred connections there. I mean, I don't know because I'm not a LinkedIn expert. I haven't done the math. I haven't looked into the strategic thinking behind it. But I do know what works for me, and I do think that in general, there are some things that we can take away from that, that applies whether you have a couple hundred followers or whether you have many hundreds of thousands of followers. And that's like, to offer value always, to wrap it in a story as much as you can, to encourage other people's points of view and opinions. And this is the most important thing, which so many people on LinkedIn don't do. And it's so stupid simple, which is comment back. Like if someone is going to drop a comment on a post, and I'm not talking about the robo comments, like we see all of those that are AI written, like we can see those coming a mile away. I'm not talking about those, but I'm talking about, there are people who will offer very thoughtful perspectives, sometimes pushing back at what I have to say, which is totally fine. And sometimes not, but always comment back as much as you possibly can. That reciprocal relationship building just pays off long term. And it's so dumb, like I said, in the sense that it's so simple, but so many people on LinkedIn don't do it. Like so many people on LinkedIn show up, they post, and they're gone. You
They
know?
post and they
And it
ghost.
Yeah, exactly, and it's just like we were talking about with our friends from Sprout Social, you know? Think about, how do I build this relationship long term? Like, people wanna be seen, they wanna be heard, and they wanna know that if they're commenting on something that you wrote, that what your reaction is to it, and so, yeah, I don't know, that's my secrets for the whatever it's worth. So sometimes I'll go a couple of weeks without posting because I don't feel like I have anything to say, and other times I'll be, like, twice in 1 week because I feel like, "Oh, there's a lot going on for me this week," so, yeah.
Well, I'm hearing like empathy, relevance, thoughtfulness, storytelling and engagement. Those are some of the themes I'm hearing as far as how you go about it. And it makes sense. And I've heard a lot of folks talk about commenting on its own could be as or more effective than posting,
Oh, yeah,
you know?
yeah, right, I
So
also do that, yeah, it's true, like, I may not post every day, but I pop in probably once a day-ish, maybe once every other or every 3 days. I do pop in and I respond to anybody who has tagged me, unless you've tagged me in one of those paragraphs of experts, you know what I'm talking about? No, I will not respond to that because it's like that's just you're just baiting at that point. I don't like that. It just counters everything that I believe in. So I don't do that. But if someone has a thoughtful comment or they've tagged me in something else, like this reminds me of something Ann said, no, 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 like I'll respond to that. And I comment on other people's things too, like Lee announces he's coming back to Top Rank. I'm like, yes, and it's not even just a big announcement like that, but, I'll try to pop in and see what's what. I mean, it's a great source of inspiration and ideas for me. So to think about it in those terms and not just as a place to shill your stuff, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So one of the communication channels for you that's really, taken off is your newsletter Anarchy. And I know I've said this to you before because I've asked you about this about your newsletter and about writing newsletters when we've interviewed before. By the way, this is our sixth time that we've done an interview. Little trivia there, so thank you for that. But and yours is one of the few newsletters I actually read. You and Chris Penn and maybe a couple others. So I'm wondering a little about okay. Fast forward to today, in the role of one-to-one communications or the aspiration to one-to-one communications that email offers. And I'm wondering, what advice can you share? Because there's a lot of folks, there's a lot of brands, B2B brands that aren't either publishing a newsletter, publishing with any cadence or frequency, or just not doing as well as they'd like to. What advice can you give them at a high level?
Yeah. So I think the newsletter should be the center of your marketing strategy. That's how important I think it is, and I know that's a strong statement, but I think it's way more important to have that relationship with email newsletter subscribers because of the one-on-one aspect of it, as you said, but also because of the high bar that it sets for marketers and for marketing, which I like. I like a high bar in marketing, like, I wish there were more high bars in marketing. And what I mean by that is if you're not offering value, if you're not delivering it consistently to one person in their inbox, they're just gonna unsubscribe, like, click that button and they're gone, and you could never darken their doorstep again. And so I love that challenge and being asked to perform at that high level. Um, and so I think it should be the center of your strategy because of that, that relationship, like I said, and because it calls us to be truly great marketers. But also because, there's in a world where there is so much noise and it's just so much chaos, it's just a smarter strategy to have that relationship and to nurture it over time. I've talked about this a lot, and I think you and I have probably talked about this too, Lee, but so often B2B brands or any brand really will approach their newsletter as focusing more on the news and less on the letter. So they'll focus on what they want to say. They'll focus on what they want to announce or talk about. They focus on themselves and they just amplify the news when really they should be thinking about the letter piece of it. How do we write it in a way that feels like it could only go to one person at one time? How does it feel as engaging as going out into my mailbox and pulling out a letter from a friend? And I don't think that's an unreasonable way to think about your email newsletter. And from a data perspective, from an engagement perspective, from a long-term relationship building perspective, like the email newsletter is the way to go. It's not the only thing, like, well, what about a subscribable podcast? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like all that, fine. But I'm saying for so many B2B brands, it's like they're just missing the boat with their email newsletter. And it's just, it could be so much better. And there are a few that I think are really great, but I sign up for all kinds of stuff all the time just because I'm always looking for somebody who's really killing it with their email newsletter. And I absolutely think that it should be the center of our strategy. Social is great, but social is discovery, and you've got to figure out a way to get those people who are like interacting with you up here, who are finding out about you at a high social level, and move them down into to become subscribers. Because once they do that, like it's just such a valuable relationship, and that email address is such a valuable asset for your B2B company.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the first things I recognized when I came back and looking at, the marketing mix was the idea or how important it is. I know for us and for anyone else is to have an effort at growing their subscribed audience. And, newsletters is one, and this podcast, podcast video, YouTube, whatever you can subscribe to enable that direct, that notification or communication is super important because obviously there's great disruption in referred clicks from organic search, right? I mean, it's declining, and people are getting their answers in a lot of other ways and a lot of other places. So some of those traditional models just aren't as reliable. But with a subscribed audience, you are giving the opportunity for people to opt in a couple of different ways in the media format that's comfortable for them. And that way you can engage with them and emphasize that letter, not the news, as you say. Hey, guess what? B2B forums coming up. I mean, it's going to be November before we know it.
I
And,
know, I know. It's late
you
this year.
know, it
Yeah.
seems like time goes by so fast. And what's different? What's the theme? What can you tell us about B2B Forum this year?
Yeah, so this year it's in November. It is later than it typically is. It's actually the week before Thanksgiving. So I'm pretty sure that it's probably one of the last marketing events of the calendar year. Um, Probably maybe there's one in December, but yeah, not many. So yeah, it's pretty late. I mean, I love the B2B forum. It's probably my favorite thing that we do at Marketing Pros. I love the personality of it, the heart of it. And there's always something new and different every year. This year we're talking a lot about gratitude in part because it's the week before the B2B for the B2B sorry, the week before Thanksgiving, so it's sort of an obvious tie-in, but yeah, we have lots of great sessions that are going to be, talking about certainly, like all the AI and automation and all the information you need about email and search and how it's changing with AI and all that other stuff. So yeah, all the amazing programming that we have a team of 2 that just kills it every single year. But also just some really fun stuff coming up too. Like we've got great conversations happening on stage that are we started this last year and we're sort of continuing it this year where it's kind of like we close the doors and it kind of becomes like a cone of silence. Like no one can tweet what's going on in here. It's like real talk, real conversations, like the real. Um, and and just airing out like what's actually going on in marketing today from marketing leaders. Like what are they seeing coming down? How do we prepare for what's now and what's next? And so to me, the reason I raise that is because it's so emblematic of what we do at Marketing Profs, which is to, not just to give you marketing information and education, but also just to like to make you feel seen and heard and to connect you with those around you because we're all walking the same path. We're all living this shared experience in B2B marketing right now. So that's just one taste of it. The other piece of it, though, is that, what I love about it is that so many of our speakers really just, I don't know, they just really show up in ways that I don't see them show up in other places. So they just try things differently. They experiment a little bit on stage. Like last year, Paul Ince, who you may or may not know, he's in the UK and he goes by Biz Paul on a number of the social channels. And he literally he started his session. It was all about lead conversions. And he started his session by holding a funeral, like, dearly beloved, we are gathered here today for the marketing funnel. Like, the funeral for the marketing funnel, like live, right in front of the audience. He had like the whole, like the collar, the whole thing. And it was just one example, I think, of how speakers show up in a way that is very different than they do anywhere else. They take risks. They show up as like talk about being vulnerable. Like that could have failed miserably, but it was hilarious. He had music. It was so great, the whole thing. And so it's just an example, I think, of how speakers show up differently and how they stay for the whole time. And as a result, how people in the audience, like they feel that, it doesn't feel like another marketing conference. So yeah, all that to say, there's lots of great stuff that we have planned for this November.
Yeah, B2B Forum's always been a creative place, a place that feels like home. These are our people, very strong community. And the fact that speakers do stay is of great value to attendees because then, you find yourself sitting next to some folks at lunch 2 days after or a day after they've spoken. And it's like, oh, can I pick your brain? Yeah, it's great. It's great. So, hey, let's finish things up with a fun, or hopefully fun, social media word association game. Does that
Ooh,
sound good?
that sounds great.
So, I'm going to
Okay.
say the name of a social network,
Mhm.
and if you can just share the first word that pops into your mind, and you can say whatever you want.
Oh, okay.
Sound good? Okay. Uh,
Yeah, okay.
LinkedIn. Yeah,
Ooh,
LinkedIn is our first one.
um, oh, wow. LinkedIn, we were just talking about this. Story.
Facebook.
That's the way that's the key. Facebook, dead to me, which is 3 words, I know, but
It's okay.
actually, I'll give you maybe 9 words. Facebook.
So the first thing, yeah, you're doing it right. You're
Yeah,
doing it
if it
right.
weren't let me put it this way, Facebook. If it weren't for Messenger, I would delete my account.
Instagram,
Instagram, oh my gosh, silly, but I think I need to rethink it.
X,
Ugh, disappointing.
Threads.
Threads. Um, Unclear. It's yeah, it's trying to be Twitter, I'm giving you way more than 1 word. I can't do 1 word, Lee.
It's
Yeah,
okay. It's
unclear.
okay.
I would say unclear. Trying to be
Unclear.
Twitter, I don't know, not quite there yet for me.
Blue sky.
Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Reddit,
Reddit, the new Twitter,
YouTube.
YouTube. Um, Useful for search, and if I had more words, I would say I've very much been thinking about how I can make my YouTube presence stronger. And actually, I'll just tell you this, maybe people can weigh in if you think this is a good idea or not. Trying to come up with a better YouTube strategy than just putting bits of my talks up there, which is kind of how I use it now, like showing some keynote speeches that I've given. My thought is, can I use, I usually work out of a tiny house, my tiny house studio in my backyard. I'm not there now, but usually that's where I am. Should I do something called Tiny House Talks?
Yes,
Where okay, so I but here's my
absolutely.
thought. take some of my newsletter content and can I just have a conversation with the audience about it? Trying to figure out, do I do it live? Do I not do it live? Do I do it recorded? I don't know. There's a lot of questions. So if anybody in the audience has some thoughts on that and wants to help me with it, they should reach out.
Absolutely. So yes, please everybody chime in and let's get Tiny House Talks on YouTube. Yes. TikTok.
Oh, TikTok. Oh my gosh. That's a brain rot right there situation. Fun, but brain rot. I can't stop. I just can't stop.
Snapchat.
Irrelevant to me.
Discord.
Too complicated. Can't.
Pinterest.
Pinterest. Yeah. That's a tough one. I used to be on it. I think I've lost my password.
Yeah. So here's a question. Is there a social network like Plurk or something that that you wish was still around that isn't
Oh,
anymore?
yeah. I wish Twitter was still around.
Excellent answer.
I miss Twitter. I do. I loved Twitter.
Yeah.
It's gone. I don't know where it went. Can't
No,
find
it's
it.
got you're right. You're correct. Well, this is great. This I always a pleasure speaking with you, Ann, and thank you so much for sharing and all that you do. I'm sure people can guess, but I just want to have you share with them what's the best place for people to connect with you.
Oh, yeah. So you can like connect me on LinkedIn. If you connect with me on LinkedIn, like say how we met. Like don't just hit connect. Like tell me how we met or how you found me and how we could help each other. So that's the first thing. Second thing, my website, annhandley.com, and I'm in the midst of relaunching my website. It has been a painful relaunch. I've been working on it because of me, because I've been so slow. But I've been like working on it for about a year and a half. My designer is a saint because she just keeps waiting on me. So I'm about to relaunch that. You can sign up for my email newsletter at annhandley.com/newsletter. What else? Yeah, email ann@annhandley.com. So those are probably my big three. LinkedIn, my own website/newsletter, and or email.
Okay, great. Well, we'll include links to the website and LinkedIn for sure. Um, and again, thank you so much, Ann. I
Oh
appreciate
my
it.
gosh, it was so fun. Next time it's so wait, is this number 7 or is next time lucky number 7?
And next time.
Next time. All right. So next time, maybe like a year from now, we can talk about my book when it
I can
launches.
start yet another show.
And yeah, might as well. Thank you
Awesome.
so much, Lee. It was a lot of fun.
So I want to thank you for tuning into the Beyond B2B Marketing podcast. Be sure that you subscribe so that you can stay tuned for our next guest. And remember, there's no better time to break free of boring B2B than today or something like that.
Yeah.
All right.
Then right now.